This episode is powered by OutPost Roasters, small batch, high quality coffee with soul. OutPost Roasters in Johnson City specializes in freshly roasted, small batch, ethically sourced, fair trade local coffee. That's what sets them apart from the big guys. They work directly with small farms and co ops to ensure responsible practices and rich, balanced flavor in every single cup. Whether it's early mornings or late nights, their 12-ounce bags deliver bold, smooth coffee at a totally fair price. Head to outpostroastersjc.com to explore their blends and single origins. Outpost Roasters, coffee that's definitely worth waking up for. Well, good morning,
Good morning.
Courtney. How are you today?
I am doing great. I'm so excited to be here.
We're excited to have you here too. It's so when you spoke at that women's retreat that my mom went to, she was like, "Oh my gosh, Courtney is amazing. Her story, just everything about her." She was like, "I think that like I want to put you guys in touch with each other." She's like, "But I don't want to make it awkward because like I just met her too." And my mom is like, there's nobody else on the planet like my mom.
I love that woman. Yeah.
She's like, she doesn't get offended. She just literally loves every single person, no matter what.
Yeah.
And she's kind of like this chameleon too. Like if she's talking to somebody who is not from here and they have like a, maybe they have an accent, she's kinds of ends up mimicking their accent or something when she's talking with them. Like that's how far her empathy goes. I think she just kind of like, and so she just spoke so highly of you and then your book too, which I haven't had the chance to fully read yet. I've glimpsed at different parts and because I borrowed her copy. And so if you want to just share your name and I mean, your book right here, God Stories, we're going to be talking about that and probably some God stories too.
Yes.
But so go ahead and just give me your name and maybe what kind of inspired your book. Is this your first one?
Well, it's the first one that's been published.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So my name's Courtney Dailey, and I started out as a Christian fiction author.
Okay.
Or so I thought. That was my plan.
Okay.
And I started writing all of these fiction novels, and I had been praying for years, God, please help for me to be a bright light and have massive impact. Help for me to be a bright light and have massive impact. But it was one of those prayers that you pray where you're like, so here's how I want you to do it, God. I want you to make me a best-selling Christian fiction author, and this is the path. And if you can do that, then I'll be a bright light.
Yeah.
And God had totally different plans for me.
Yeah.
This book was nowhere in my wheelhouse. It was not part of our plan. This ministry wasn't part of our plan. And it all started because after Hurricane Helene, we have this dear family friend named Jerry. He was 69 at the time. Now he's 71. And we hadn't seen him in a couple of days. We'd been trying to get in touch with him, but there was no cell service in the areas where they got hit really hard. So the last we had heard from him was a Facebook post he had made with pictures of the water rising in his yard.
Now, where is this? Because
this is in Hampton, Tennessee.
Okay. Hampton got hit pretty hard because there's so many different places in Tennessee that people didn't realize got hit.
Yes.
And we had Lance from Unicoi Christian Church on here, and he was talking about, Unicoi getting hit hard, and there's just different parts. And so do you also live in Hampton?
I live in Elizabethton.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right.
So we're just we're about 15 minutes from there.
Parts of Elizabethton got
parts of
stinking hit hard too.
Yes. And it was crazy because no one was expecting it. Everybody
Yeah.
thought it was going to go to Chattanooga. Nobody thought that it would take the course that it did. So the day that we finally found Jerry, we drove into Hampton. My husband was at the volunteer fire department. He took his excavator down there. It was just my daughter and me. And when I pulled onto his street, it was like the Twister movie. You know the original Twister when they drive through Wakita?
Yeah.
And it's just, and there's the piles of belongings on the side of the road and just the people with their faces and cars tumbled upside down and mud everywhere. Just crazy belongings all over the place.
A movie.
It was like
almost looked like a movie scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, you've got to be kidding me.
Unreal.
He had this garage where he hung out every day. He had his 5 collector cars in his garage. His garage was gone.
Yeah.
There was just a concrete slab. And half of someone's house was parked, sitting cockeyed in his front yard. You could hardly see his house. And when we pulled onto the street and we found him, he was just standing in the neighbor's yard. And he was in about 2 feet of mud, wearing the only set of clothes he still owned, and tennis shoes with no socks, and he was just crying.
Mm-hmm.
And when we got out of the car, of course, we ran and hugged him, and we were all crying because we were thankful he was alive. We didn't know. A lot of people were lost in this storm, and we didn't know if he had made it. And he was like, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
I'm so devastated. And I was looking at his house, and I was like, it's not that bad. Like, I think it's going to be okay. My husband's a builder. He builds houses. I am not a builder. I am a girly girl. I don't know anything about construction. But I was looking at it, and I was like, it doesn't look that bad. And he said, no, you don't understand. And he pulled me around to the back of the house. And the water, when it came down Spring Street in Hampton, there was a lumber mill up the road.
Okay.
And then when the water came charging out of the mountains, because it was like 29 inches of rainfall overnight.
I know. It was weird.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
And there was a lumber mill, but all of the rapids got backed up behind the logs. So it made a dam. So the water went from being this deep to being 3 or 4 feet deep in a matter of seconds.
Yeah.
And he was in his garage when he saw the water coming, and it came down the street, and it busted through his bedroom window and tore through the house and pushed out the entire back wall of his house. So his house looked like a dollhouse.
Yeah.
Open on hinges that you could see everything inside. But there wasn't much left. His deep freezer had washed away. His dryer was sitting on its back in the middle of the living room floor. His washing machine had washed away. His side-by-side refrigerator was laying on its back in the kitchen floor. There was 2 feet of mud in his house. His family antiques and heirlooms and photo albums, just washed away. There were random toys in his house that belonged who knows to who or where that had just washed down. So when he saw the water coming, thankfully he wasn't in his house.
Yeah.
Because his bedroom was like a 5-foot deep beaver dam of logs and twigs and all that had busted through the window. It would have killed him if he had been in his house.
Yeah.
But he jumped in his little red Honda.
Hold on 1 second. What do you need, Brian? Can you pull the mic a little closer?
Oh, yay. That's not the norm normally.
No, you're fine.
Normally it's like, quieten down, Courtney. You're too excited.
No. Well, it's funny because I saw Brian out of the corner of my eye, and I was like, I bet he's got to tell me something because he usually doesn't linger that long. And he doesn't come on this side of the camera. He doesn't like it.
Forget it.
Yeah. So otherwise he could have just taken his arm, went and moved it, but he won't do that. Is that better? Okay. So continue. If he was in his garage, if he wasn't in his garage.
Yeah, if he hadn't been in his garage, which he barely survived anyway, he ran out and he said,
I was going to ask.
He said, I jumped in my little red Honda. And I'm like, that's the worst thing you can do when there's water. But he said, I didn't know what else to do. I jumped in my little red Honda. He said, when I pulled onto the street, when I backed out of my driveway, the water was up to the hood of the car.
So he was trying to drive and escape.
He was trying to drive and escape. And then it came up over his windshield. And he said he had the wipers on. And he said, I just started praying because I thought, this is it. The Lord's taking me home.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my goodness, Jerry. He said, and then my car floated to higher ground right there where EMS was waiting. I was like, cars don't float, Jerry. Cars don't float. He said, I know. It was the Lord. He said, it was my prayer. But he said, I have no flood insurance and I have no savings and I don't know what I'm going to do. And that was the beginning of
Dang it.
Right.
Dang it, Brian.
I'm
already digging into the Kleenex.
Tissue. We were devastated. It was unbelievable because his was one of the many stories on that street. And I went home that night. I hadn't seen my husband at all. I took Jerry to Walmart. We got him like a pillow and a toothbrush and some of this stuff. He was staying in an apartment near his house. And I was like, well, come home with us, Jerry. Come stay with us. He said, no, I can't. I was like, why? He said, because the looters come out at night.
Oh my gosh. To make matters worse.
So
did he have any family or like any pets or anything?
No.
Okay. It's just him.
So thankfully he didn't lose any pets or anything. It's just him living in that house. He's lived in that house most of his life. It's been in his family.
Yeah.
So when I got home that night, I hadn't seen my husband at all. And I had already taken Jerry to Walmart and gotten him a few of his basic necessities. And I had taken him out to eat. That was when the first real miracle happened. Was that night that we had a list of stuff.
Well, the second, I would say.
The first was Jerry
his Honda.
being saved.
Yeah, his red Honda.
Yeah, because cars don't float. And for him to land right there.
Does he still have the car?
He has it. It's dead. It has died.
Okay.
It is full of dried mud, but he will not let it go.
Yeah,
it's still on his property. He still has it.
Now it's a big planter.
But his 5 collector cars, that he didn't have insurance on because he never drove them. They're just gone, just complete loss.
Yeah.
And bless his heart.
Yeah.
So I went home that night, and my husband was sitting on the bed, and I couldn't even talk. When I came in, I was bawling because I couldn't explain to him the things that I had seen. It was like a movie. It was so surreal.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, we gotta help him rebuild, Paul. Like, we gotta do something. Can we get him a camper? Can we get him? And my husband is a builder, so I
Yeah.
start telling him about all the damage,
Uh-huh.
and he's like, Courtney, you're talking $100,000. We
Yeah.
can't afford to build him a house. And I was like, well, we got to do something. He only has a place to stay until
Yeah.
Christmas.
Uh-huh.
And then what is he going to do? And I was just bawling, and my husband just pulled me into a hug, and he said, we can't help him, but we know the one who can. And he started praying. And my husband prayed that night, God, please send us everything we need to fix Jerry's house. And then he added this part, which shows how much faith he has. He said, let us get him back in his house by Christmas. So the very next morning, we got up. I got the kids out of bed. The kids were out of school for like 2 weeks. We had no cell service, no school. It was just, it was war zone. It was crazy.
Did they go with you when you went to go see Jerry?
Yes.
Okay.
So I got them out of bed.
How old are they?
So my son was 16 and my daughter was 9 at the time. They were not thrilled.
Yeah.
I was like, guys, get out of bed. Like,
yeah.
Put on your rubber boots, get some gloves. We're getting some snow shovels. We're going down to Jerry's house. And my husband pulled his excavator and followed us. And when we got down into Hampton, it was so depressing. It was really hard. But we got in the house. Jerry couldn't watch. He sat by the road in a camping chair and stared off into the mountains. So the kids and I got in his house, and we just started mucking out just all that.
He couldn't watch you guys going in there to take stuff?
No, he didn't. He just was completely disconnected. He just sat by the road and stared off into space.
Hold on, I gotta take my glasses off. This is ridiculous.
You're fine. So we started mucking out. So we're shoveling mud, just dumping it out the windows. And I mean, it stinks.
Yeah.
There is sewage. Who
it's
knows
not just
what.
mud. It's
we call it muck
all the things.
because there's no telling what's in it. So we were mucking out the house, and I look up. We've been mucking out for like 10 or 15 minutes. And there were like 8 or 9 people standing on the front stoop with rubber boots with their shovels saying,
just ready.
What do we need to do? And I was like, well, we're mucking out the house. They said, you want help? And we were like, yeah, great. And within 30 minutes, we had all of these people shoveling the muck out of the house, and they were all talking and just talking about Jesus, talking about their faith. It was so encouraging. Somebody from Jerry's church came, and we started unloading the things out of the house that we thought could be saved. And this guy pulls up in a truck, and they haul it off to his house so that they can go and wash off everything and save what they can. Somebody else from Jerry's church showed up and rigged up the water line. I'm a plumber. I can rig up the water line from the road. And we were like, awesome, we'll have a hose. Okay. So that's great. So then the muck out crew left, and we had a hose, and then somebody else showed up with a pressure washer and a generator. And we were like, wow. So we had everything washed out, cleaned out. Somebody else brought this giant fan. It was like everything we needed just started falling into place. My husband was up and down the road. You looked out the windows, and there were dozens of dump trucks, excavators, tractors. They were all locals. Yeah. They weren't government officials. Yeah. It was locals taking time off work, using their fuel and their time just to come and help their neighbors. And they were all organizing the debris. And then we had this church because they wouldn't let us dump in the landfill. Don't get me started. Okay. So we had this church that said, hey, you can use the empty lot next to our building that y'all can dump the debris. So they worked out a system, and it was beautiful. They were up and down the street, just moving all the debris off, doing all this stuff. So by lunchtime, the whole house was mucked out. Everything was it was beautiful. It was amazing. And I was sitting by the road with Jerry. Somebody had dropped off these bags of snacks. So we're eating granola bars, and we had bottles of water and stuff. We're standing by the road. And I said, man, I really wish we could rip out the insulation in the drywall. And Jerry was like, I don't know, Courtney, I've heard we're not supposed to touch it. Like, we're supposed to wait on insurance or FEMA. And I was like, well, it's going to mold. It's going to be nasty. We need to get to it. He said, you don't have any tools. I was like, yeah, but if we had people. Yeah. And as soon as I said it, I looked down the street, and there's a dozen women in Isaiah House t-shirts walking down the street. Yeah. In white tennis shoes, bless their hearts, with no gloves. Yeah. And so Jerry yells to him, and he's like, do you guys want something to do? And they were like, yeah, we can help. What do you need? So he was like, ask Courtney. She's in charge. I was like, I am not in charge.
She wants to rip drywall off.
So we're like, we go marching into the house and they're like, what do we do? And I'm like, we're ripping out drywall and insulation. What do we use? I'm like, anything you can find, your bare hands, whatever. So all these women, it's burning up. It's steamy in that house. And we're using curtain rods, things we found in the yard, whatever we can to rip out drywall with our bare hands. I was standing on the bathroom sink, Jerry's bathroom, ripping off drywall over my head. And I said, man, what I wouldn't give for a crowbar. And somebody in the next room goes, oh, I saw one. There's a crowbar in the yard. And I was like, no way. So I climbed down. I'm walking through the house and I said, do you happen to see a ladder too? And somebody else yelled, oh yeah, there's a ladder too.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. And I walk out the front door and there's not just one crowbar. There's 3 laying there side by side next to the ladder. I hadn't seen them before.
Yeah.
So we get it all ripped out. We're throwing the insulation and the drywall out the back of the house. And as we're throwing it out the back of the house, this dude shows up on a tractor and starts hauling it away for us. I mean, it was every single thing we needed. When we got hungry, people showed up with hot meals. People showed up with waters. People showed up with fuel. It was everything we needed the whole day.
Yeah.
We had a guy from Hawkins County 5 minutes after I got the crowbars who busted in and said, you guys need tools? And he had driven over with his family for the day to see how he could help. By that night, we were driving home and I was sobbing. I was listening to worship music and I was just sobbing and praying because of the way God had shown up the whole entire day. It was every single thing we needed. And I knew in my heart, he was already answering our prayer. And I was trying to build my author platform, right?
Yeah.
So I had 600 followers on Facebook. So we get home and I tell the kids, go in the house. I have to make a video about what I have seen God do today. So they're like, okay, they go in the house. It was the most embarrassing, awful. I mean, I had drywall crumbs in my hair. I had mud and muck caked under my beautiful acrylic fingernails. I had all of the makeup washed off of one eye where I had gotten muck in my eye and shaken a bottle of water over my eye that day. Yeah. And I made a 5-minute, ridiculous, sobbing my eyes out, just talking about everything I had watched God do that day. And then at the end of the video, I said, if you really want to help somebody, please message me. We need more hands. We need more help. Well, the next day we got up, same thing. We went down to Jerry's. We worked all day. We had no cell phone service. So we got home that night and I opened my Facebook and I was like, oh, that video had like 6,000 or 7,000 views. And I was like, I've never had that many views. This is incredible. And I had over a dozen people who had messaged me saying, hey, we can bring a work crew. We've got a youth group. I'm a builder. All these people were donating. And I was like, this is incredible. I was sobbing. And when we prayed that night, we were just thanking God because we were like, this is huge. He's already doing it. When I woke up the next morning, the video had hit 70,000 views. I was getting ready and I had my phone propped up on the bathroom sink and I was shaking all over. My heart was pounding because my phone was just ding, ding, ding in constant succession with messages from people from all over the place. I mean, people from all over the world, from Thailand and Norway and Australia. Like, what? And people saying, I'm from Maryland, I have bathroom vanities, and I'm from Georgia, and we can do your drywall and insulation, and I can do the kitchen counters, and I can do the siding, and I just, like, everything we need. It was just pouring in, and I was freaking out. So people started Venmoing me. And I called the church secretary and I was like, I'm going to go to prison. I was like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know. What can we do? I said, can we set up a fund through the church? I don't want money coming to me. I want God to get the glory. I don't want to be accountable for all this. And then people will know it's legit. They get their little tax acknowledgments if they want to donate. Can we do this? Yeah. It was like 10 minutes later. Our church is awesome. It's a Central Community Christian Church in Johnson City. Okay. Awesome church. They called me back and they were like, yep, it's done. We've set it up. Here's the link. So I sent out the link and things just started pouring in. Within 2 weeks, we had every single thing we needed to rebuild Jerry's house. And people were pouring in from all over the country. And we realized I guess it was about the first or second week, that we had more than enough resources.
Yeah.
But all these other people up and down the street didn't have the help. They were hurting and they were asking, how come Jerry's getting all the help? We need help too. And who's
Yeah.
going to help us? So we got a notebook and we went down the street and we just started asking people, okay, what's your name? How many are in your house? What are your immediate needs? What got
Yep.
destroyed? And we had a piece of paper for every single person up and down the street. And we knew we couldn't do it all. It was too much. It was way
Yeah.
too much for us to do.
How many people was it on? And it was it because the destruction path was so weird. How like one side of the street could be completely taken out and the other side will be fine.
Yes.
So is this like a really long street and the whole thing was wiped out? Like, give us the swath of damage.
It's not a really long street. It's below Hampton High School.
Okay.
In the book, it's called Clearwater because I had to do that just so nobody would
Yep.
sue me for the real name of the street.
Yeah.
Most of the houses on the right side of the street were
Okay.
wiped out, but some of them had damage on the left side too. So there were
Okay.
some people who just lost their HVAC
Yeah.
or they just lost their flooring or but most of the homes where we talked to folks, they had lost vehicles. Vehicles was a big one. Their vehicles had washed away.
Yeah.
They needed new flooring, new HVAC, new kitchen, bathroom remodels, drywall from 4 feet down.
Yeah.
That was pretty much par for the course on that street.
Mm-hmm.
So when we went down through there and started asking everybody, and then we were like, could we find churches to adopt these houses? If
Mm-hmm.
we kind of help oversee and we share the resources that are coming in and
Yeah.
spread it out. So we started meeting with ministers. The funny thing is, I was going to the big churches
Mm-hmm.
because I'm a human being and I'm an idiot. I would go to the big churches who I knew had collected tens of thousands of dollars and be like, hey, you're a big church. This house was torn down completely. They need a complete rebuild. Will you take this on? They shot me down one after the next. And I was so angry. I didn't understand. We had 3 homes that had to be completely rebuilt that were
Mhm.
torn down. And it was about the middle of October. So it was about 2.5 weeks after the hurricane had hit. And our church had adopted a second home at the end of the street that was probably about a $70,000 project. It was pretty big. And I had been down at that house that morning and they were asking me for kerosene. Everybody on the street needed kerosene and it was so expensive because they were running kerosene heaters. They didn't have power. They were trying to dry out all of the mud
Mhm.
and get everything, kill the mold and all that stuff. And so this guy was like, Courtney, do you have kerosene? I was like, no. And I thought, we can't use the funds for that. We didn't know how long it was going to go and how much we were going to have.
Yeah.
So it was about an hour later, I was sitting at Jerry's. Jerry had put up this little tent and his house became like our hub. So we had first aid kits and muck out suits and gloves and snacks and everything. And people would gather there. They would pray together. They would share their stories. It was just, he had this little sign from his house that said blessed. And he had gotten zip ties and had it zip tied to the front of the tent. And people would just gather there. So we're sitting at Jerry's little tent and this brigade of pickup trucks pulled onto the street with Kentucky tags.
Okay.
The backs of the trucks were full of jugs of kerosene. And these guys got out and I was like, what are you doing here? And they were like, y'all need kerosene? That's how they talk in Kentucky. I
Yeah.
love these guys. Y'all need kerosene? We were
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody on this street. I was like, where? How? Like, what? Why are you here? And they said, well, when we first heard about this, our church just started praying, how can we help these people? And we decided kerosene. So we started raising money and we started buying kerosene. I said, well, why did you come down today? They said, we don't know. This was the first free day we had. And we said, we're just going to get on the road and go where the Lord leads us. So we just ended up here. So they come from this little church, Meads Branch Free Will Baptist Church in Louisa, Kentucky. It's
Okay.
over 3 hours away.
I was going to say, how far away is it?
Yeah, it's over 3 hours away.
Okay.
So they're going up and down the street. They're handing out kerosene and they're just praying with people and loving on people. But their church is 150 members. It's a little church.
Yeah.
They stay most of the day. We fall in love with these people. I mean, they're just Jesus guys. They just love on people and we just loved these guys. So they left. 2 days later, their minister called me and said, Courtney, we met with the men this morning and we want to commit to rebuilding those 3 homes. And I was like, of course you do. Because It wasn't about the big churches with the big budgets. That's not the way God works.
Mhm.
God doesn't use Goliath to kill Goliaths. God uses David because the power is not in David. The power is the Lord behind David. And that's what God was showing us. They raised like $300,000 within a matter of weeks. They had raised everything that they needed. And these guys were driving over 3 hours and coming down and working on these homes every week. They were incredible. So, sorry, I get off on a long time. I've been talking about this for a really long time. I haven't
That's
even
okay.
taken a
I'm
breath.
just literally sitting here crying.
There's so many
I haven't
stories.
stopped, so
There's so many stories. I went to speak at a church while I was in Florida, and they were like, "Wait, can you speak for an hour?" And I was like, "Oh, I only brought my 25-minute thing," because I have like a 25-minute, a 45-minute, and a 1 hour. And I was like, "I only brought my 25-minute one." They were like, "Well, whatever you can do." I spoke for the full hour
yeah,
because there are so many stories.
yeah,
And every day I would be down on the job site
uh-huh,
and something miraculous would happen.
yeah,
And every day I was getting on Facebook and I was making the video saying, "Here's the God story of today, y'all." And I struggled because almost every time I made a video, I was bawling my eyes out because we were front row seats witnessing the power of God right
Mm.
there in front of us. How could you not cry? It was all day, every day. And more followers started showing up and more volunteers started coming. And it just kept going and going and going. And people were really hungry for the God stories. That's every day I would go down and we would work at Jerry's. My husband had to go back to work. Somebody in the family had to work. I was taking time off just to rebuild down there.
yeah,
And I would come home at night and I would sit for hours and go through messages. And a lot of them were, I build decks or I can do HVAC or whatever. I had this huge notebook that I was keeping all the notes.
yeah,
But a lot of them were people saying, I have cancer, or I've had church hurt, or I've fallen away from God and I need somebody to talk to. And these stories are helping strengthen my faith. And it was like, wow, because the devil meant it for evil. He did something to hurt people and to destroy people, but God was using it for good. And there was one night I had someone messaging me. And this lady had been messaging me for over a month.
yeah,
And she was saying, I'm struggling with my faith. Please help me. Please, we can. And so we were going back and forth. I was sharing scriptures. I was praying with her. One night she sent me a message and she said, I understand if you're never going to talk to me again. I get it. But there's something I need to tell you. I'm actually a man. And I was like, what? And he said, I've struggled with gender identity for years. And now I finally realized I need to make things right with my wife and go back to her and go back to God.
wow,
And I was bawling, which my husband was always like, I checked messages at night. And my husband was like, because I would just sit and cry and I couldn't even talk. I couldn't read the messages. I said, I thought we were rebuilding houses. I didn't understand. I thought we were rebuilding houses. This was something so much bigger. And all these people started messaging me and saying, you have to write down the God stories. And I was like, I'm busy. Like, we're rebuilding houses. I'm a fiction writer. I hate writing nonfiction. That's not my thing. That's cute though. Thanks. No, I'm good. And we had a couple that drove down from Maryland, showed up at our church on a Sunday morning. This lady walks into the foyer and she hands me a journal. And she said, God told me to bring this to you. Start taking notes. You're going to write the God Stories book. And the funny thing is, I didn't listen, of course, because I'm stubborn and
Did you know her?
ignorant. No,
Oh,
no,
okay.
I never met her. She and her husband had been following all of the videos
Okay.
on Facebook, and they drove down from Maryland. And her husband volunteered for a couple of days and helped us at Jerry's house.
Yep.
And they have stayed in contact with us and helped support the work. Will you hand me one of those?
Yeah, don't
please?
mind me. I'm just like super sloppy over here.
They have stayed in contact with us.
Yeah.
Throughout the whole thing. But it was just, it was one of those things it wasn't part of my plan.
Yeah.
And so.
Well, that's the funny thing is that's how it happens, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you just described every great story ever is that we always have this plan of like, oh, this is how I want this to happen, A, B, C, and D, and we'll line up our life that way. And then God's like, oh, really? Hold my beer. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
like watch what I'm
Yeah.
about to
Yeah.
do.
And it's so funny though, because that's how it happens.
That's how it
So
happens. It's been insane. And people have they've gravitated toward the God story so much because there
yeah.
were so many miracle stories, just crazy stuff. Like there was
Mhm.
one night we were standing in the road down there in front of Jerry's house and we had helped this family. Somebody came to me. We were trying to get an HVAC quote. Okay. And I found out that there was another house that needed an HVAC, and it was somebody we had missed. This little widow lady in a trailer who had lost her HVAC, and she was freezing. And they had Walmart bags stuffed in the cracks because all of their what's it called? All the ductwork from the HVAC, everything had washed away, and they just had open holes. They were freezing to death. And I said to the guy, "Hey, before you leave, will you go down to this house?" It was 166. Will you go down to 166 and check and see? Do a quote for us. And he said, "Oh yeah, it's already on my schedule." And I was like, "Why is it on your schedule? Who gave it to you?" Because we had a bunch of ministers and volunteers and stuff. So we
Yeah.
started looking through it. Nobody had ordered it. And he said, "I don't know, but it's on my schedule." I said, "Okay, well, when you get the quote, let me know because I think our church may want to cover it." So it was about 3 weeks later that we were having the HVAC installed. And I talked to the guy and I was like, "Hey, our church is going to go ahead and cover the cost for that HVAC at 166 if you guys want to do it." And he said, "Oh, yeah, we've already got it ordered. We're doing the install." And I said, "Who ordered it?" And he said, "I don't know, but it's been ordered. Somebody's taking care of it." I was like, "Okay." It was about 2 months later that the HVAC had been installed and everything. And I called the company and I was like, "Hey, our church was supposed to be covering 166. We haven't gotten an invoice for you guys or anything. I need to know the balance," because we were expecting it was going to be about $12,000. I said, "We
Yeah.
need to know what the balance was." The lady put me on hold forever. And when she came back on the phone, she said, "The balance is $0." I was like, what do you mean?" She said, it's already been paid for. It's done." And we were like, because no one ordered it. No one even asked for the quote.
Yeah.
No one ordered it and no one paid for it.
Yeah.
So it was that family. We were standing in front of Jerry's house that night in the road, and the lady's grandson was in the street talking to us. And I said, "How are you guys doing? How are you emotionally? Do you have any needs? What's going on?" And he said, "We're fine. We're great. We're warm now. This has been amazing. Thank you." And we were always like, "Don't thank us. Thank God." Had nothing to do with us. He said, "But I sure do miss my chickens." I was like, "Okay." He said, "Yeah, my chickens got washed away in the flood." And I was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." He said, "But I don't need any more. I'm good."
Yeah.
He said, "That is the one thing that I lost. We've gotten everything else back that we needed." And I was like, "Okay, I'm so sorry." Well, I was like 2 days, 3 days behind on my messages. So a couple days later, I'm sitting on our bed at night. I'm going through messages, and I find this message from this lady in California. And she says, "Hey, I know this is going to sound really random, but I live in California and I raise chickens and I have all of these fertilized chicken eggs. Do you know of someone who could use them?" The funny thing is, I was reading the message and I got some really crazy messages. I mean,
Oh,
people
I'm
wanting to
sure.
donate
Yep.
everything, random stuff that we're like, we can't use that, but thank you. Oh, this is so sometimes we would get funny ones. So I'm like,
What
"Paul," I tell
what
my
was
husband, I'm like, "Listen to this one."
what was the craziest thing that people donated or wanted
Oh.
to?
Um,
Fertilized chicken eggs that's
Fertilized
very,
chicken
very
eggs
interesting.
was pretty extreme. A lot of people would take pictures, like their grandmother would pass away and they were cleaning out her house and they'd be like, "We took down all the light fixtures. We're going to ship them to you." And we were like, "No,
Yeah.
we're good." Stuff
Yeah.
where people had good hearts.
Yeah,
There were people
for
who
sure.
had somebody. Well, I probably don't want to share that one. It's a little too sensitive.
Okay.
There were some really grotesque, crazy things that people wanted to donate. So I was sitting there next to my husband in bed and I was like, "Paul, listen to this one." So I start reading it. "I'm from California. This is going to sound random, but I have fertilized." And I stopped talking and I started bawling. And my husband was like, "What?" And I was like, "It's the chickens. It's the chickens." And he was like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "God's sending chickens." And when I saw the message, it had come in 4 or 5 hours after that conversation we'd had in the road that night. There were so many things just over and over and over again. And it was almost like God was just showing off. Watch what I can do now. Watch what's going to happen next. And the people, the first week we were working at Jerry's, we had this construction crew that someone had donated. They were not a youth group from a church. They weren't like our other volunteers. I mean, they were some rough construction workers.
Yeah.
And they would come on the job site every day and they were playing their music with all the language, all the things. Yeah. And the very first day they got on the job site and they were like, "Oh, we forgot our drill." And I was like, "Don't worry about it.
I got you.
God's got this." And they were like, "Okay." I was like, "No, one will show up. Just wait. Like, this has been happening. Just, you'll see. God will send what we need." And they're like, "Okay, text the boss and please tell him we're going to need a drill."
Yeah.
5 minutes later, Jerry comes walking across the yard carrying a drill from the road. And they were like, I said, "Jerry, where'd you get that drill?" He said, "Somebody from my church just pulled up, put down the window and said, 'Thought y'all might could use a drill today,' and handed it out the window." So these guys, I guess it was day 2 or 3, they came to me and they said, "This whole house is rotten." The house was 80 years old.
Yeah. Wait, are you talking about Jerry's house?
Jerry's house.
Okay.
Jerry's house.
Okay.
They said if this flood hadn't happened, this house would have collapsed in a few years. It's so rotten. And we're having to replace all the old, they were the original old true 2x4s. He said, "We're going to need 98 2x4s. And I was like, oh, because we had just started having the funds come in. And I was like, oh, this is going to hold up progress. This is awful.
Yeah.
So I got on my phone. We'd gotten service back by then. And I was scrolling and trying to find who I could get in touch with, how I could get lumber. And I heard this big clamor. And this guy in a pickup truck was backing into Jerry's driveway with a truck bed full of 2x4s. And he had his window down. And I went running over there and I was like, "Hey, what are you doing? Are these for us?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Did you go get these this morning?" He said, "Somebody from South Dakota called Bluntville Hardware this morning and said, 'I want to help some of the hurricane victims. I'd like to donate some 2x4s if you can take these to an area where they need them.'" I said, "How many are there?" He said, 100. Those guys, the whole week they worked, they just saw it, one thing after the next. And it was the very last day they were there. And we were all standing in Jerry's tent. And there was a crew of us. There were some of the crews that were working on houses down the street from different churches and stuff. So we were all standing around and recapping, talking about the day. And this guy walks up to the tent and he says, "Courtney, we need kitchen cabinets. You guys are already set here." I was like, "Yeah." We had a guy from Virginia doing the kitchen cabinets. I was like, "Yeah, we're set here." And he said, "If you know of anybody, let me know." And my phone goes ding.
Yeah.
And I couldn't, you know how you get the preview message that scrolls at the top of your screen?
Yep.
I didn't even talk. I just held out the phone for everybody in the tent to see because it said, "Hey, Courtney, my name is Abe and I'm a custom kitchen cabinet builder." And those guys who had been there all week just pulled their t-shirts up over their noses and just cried like babies, because they had witnessed it and they were like, "This is the craziest thing we've ever seen." And I was like, "Same." It was insane. So when we finished down there, we found out there was another couple working on River Road across the highway down in this gully.
In Hampton still, right?
It's still in Hampton. Okay. And they had taken on 24 homes by themselves. So Jerry's house was finished. He moved back in December 18th.
Oh my gosh.
1 week before Christmas. And that's when we were like, oh, we feel like God is calling us to River Road. And we were at a point, it was such a blessing and it was so amazing.
Yeah.
But we were exhausted.
Yeah, for sure.
It had been 3 months nonstop. We were down there 6 or 7 days a week. It was the messages, the fundraising, the checks back and forth, the building supplies, just, it was constant. It was insane. Yeah. We were just running on adrenaline.
Well, physical and emotional roller coaster at that point.
Yes. So. Yes. And my anxiety had gotten so bad that I was struggling and I was having social anxiety. I couldn't sleep at night. I was torn all to pieces. And one of the Facebook followers had sent me that song, Still Waters. It's all about Psalm 23 and how that when you're feeling anxious, you just need to lean on God and let him lead you. And by his still waters, you're safe. And so it became my theme song.
Yeah.
I listened to it on repeat for months. So we start going down into River Road. And the couple that was working down there said, okay, there's this one house. If you will just take this one house for us, it's the worst one. It was so bad. It was worse than Jerry's. The floors were all sinking to the center. We knew we had to rip off the whole back of the house and rebuild it. And we went in and we were measuring everything. And I had a bad attitude. I was burned out and I was tired. And the miracles had been amazing, but it was so much. It was just so much. And we got back in the truck and my husband and I were both just like, okay, we can do this. We can do this. And my husband said, how much is left in the account? And I said, I don't know. We didn't check the account through the whole thing. We didn't check the account because whatever we needed, God provided. And I got a text message from our church secretary. And she said, hey, we've gotten $5,000 more just today. I was like, okay. We pulled to the end of the street. We stopped at the stop sign and I looked up and I saw that the name of the street was Stillwater Circle. And I just started bawling. And of course, my husband's like, why are you crying now? And I was like, it's Stillwater Circle. It's like the song I've been listening to.
He's like, here we go.
God's telling us this is what we're going to do next. And
Yeah.
he's like, okay. And it was beautiful. So now we're actually on family number 28. And the book came out on the 1-year anniversary of Hurricane Helene. And everybody's like, write another one. And I'm like, I can't.
Yeah.
We're busy. But this last one is a single mom with 2 kids. And she was in a rent to own. Well, she had paid $10,000 down and she'd been paying $1,000 a month for 4 years. So she put like $58,000 into this house.
Yeah.
Well, then it flooded. And she wasn't the owner, and the owner had to use the FEMA money to rebuild, and she didn't have a place to live, so their agreement was dissolved. So she didn't have a home, but she doesn't have land to rebuild on or anything. So we're looking at land right now. We're trying to find land so we can do a complete rebuild for her.
Wow.
Isn't it? It's just wow. It's just wow. And people say, how long have you been doing this? I'm like, no, we didn't do this. We didn't go out and say, we're going to start a ministry and help. No, we went out to help our one friend, and we had one friend and one prayer. We were asking God for this, and he did this, and he just keeps doing it. And the single mom, we already have everything lined up. We have flooring and insulation and drywall and kitchen cabinets and all the people, all the stuff. We're just waiting on the land, and it'll all come together.
Well, thank you for the 1,000 tissues that I went through.
Sorry. I'm sorry for just
Brian,
going on and on.
How are you doing back there? Okay. Excuse me.
There's so many stories. It's hard to stop. I get started and it's like, there's just so much.
Well, I'm already post-nasal drip, so I feel like this is the first time I've ever had to blow my nose too, so I'm sure that sounds wonderful in the microphone, huh? So funny. This morning, so I've had... it's the time of year and we have toddlers, so they constantly get sick.
Yes.
And then we get sick. So for the past couple of days, I've had post-nasal drip and I've had some phlegm. This morning, I was like, and Brian's like, you could be okay today. And I was like, yeah, I'll be fine. I'll just do that in the microphone.
Fine.
Yeah, it was anytime that we went out and volunteered, and the community that we saw was amazing. We were like, oh my gosh. Because you could still go places and you could see FEMA and you could see, the workers and everything, but it was mainly the communities that were out helping people. And that was just like awesome, because I'm not saying that there wasn't support. I mean, we could go off on tangents about FEMA and some of those things.
Right.
But it's about what everybody else was doing, and it was just really cool. And I'm sorry that some churches,
It was to teach us a lesson.
Yeah.
I think that God was just showing us, quit with your plans.
Mhm.
This is my plan, and I'm the one who's going to get the glory, not these big churches.
Yeah.
Because when you see a little tiny church take on all of that,
Yeah.
God has sent over $1 million through our church, and people from over 30 states across America.
Yeah.
And when you see all of that and what's been done, 28 families in a year and a half,
Yeah.
I don't know a government organization or even just a nonprofit crew coming in who could have done all
Yeah.
that.
Who can move that fast?
Yeah,
For sure.
it was only God. And he was just picking up the pieces. People say, "Well, what's the next plan?" Because there were so many times I would make a video and be like, "We're on house number 7. This is our last house." And I'd be like, "We're on house number 9. This is our last house." People are like, "How long is it going to go?" And I'm like, "I don't know. We're on number 28. I don't know."
Yeah.
God is only lighting the path in front of us one foot at a time. I'm so thankful because
Yeah.
if he had told me a year and a half ago that it was going to be all of this, we would have been terrified. We probably wouldn't have had the faith, but we went into it blind. And because of that, he led us every step of the way.
So you're at 28 houses now. What does your day to day look like right now in terms of houses? Are people still reaching out to you? Are you still making that impact online? I mean, has it kind of shifted a little bit? Like, talk about that.
It has shifted a little bit. In the beginning, it was like a couple 100,000 views on every video and
Mhm.
just exploding. It was so overwhelming. People forget as time passes and things go
Yeah.
on, but it's turned into more of a ministry now. So right now, I'm 8 weeks behind on messages because there are thousands of messages and people keep saying, "Have somebody reply to your messages." And I'm like, "No, absolutely not."
Yeah.
Because some of
Look
those
at
are
that. Yeah.
really personal things and it's people that I've been having Bible studies with for a really long time. And it's really important to me. And a lot of those people, like we have a war room prayer list, which my husband kind of laughs because my husband and I pray together every single night. And then I pray in my war room every single morning. Well, I have all these names of all these people who have asked us to pray.
Yeah.
So at night we'll pray together and he's firing off all these names. And he's like, "God, I don't know these names. Courtney does, but you know what they need." Because there's just a whole list of people that we pray for. And there's so much of that that's incredible that I feel like now God is saying, "Okay, now you're ready. You can speak at churches, you can do this ministry, but
Yeah.
it's in the meantime, we were able to help all of these people." And I don't know where it goes from here because every time I think we're done, we're not. We're still helping a family in Burnsville too. There's a Burnsville family rebuilding that we're helping cover some of their bills right now too.
And is that from the post hurricane or is that just okay?
Yeah, that's from the
Okay.
hurricane. All of the donations, we have a separate fund that's the flood relief fund.
Okay.
So I'll have people reach out to me and say, I need my shed repaired or I had my roof collapsed. And I'm like, unless it's Hurricane Helene, that's what these funds were earmarked for when people
Yeah.
donated. So we are very respectful of that
Yeah.
and careful about that.
Yeah.
But it's been so cool. We had this one guy down on River Road, Randy, who I love. He spent the flood on the roof of his house with his dog. And he was one of those that he did not leave. He stayed in his house in the mud and started repairing it on his own and stayed right there. But Randy has a landscape company.
Okay.
So one of the guys who'd been down there came to me and said, "We got to start praying for a truck for Randy because his truck washed away and all of his equipment stuff." I was like, "Okay." So we started praying for a truck for Randy. We'd been praying for about 2 weeks. And I had made a video and mentioned something about Randy's truck. Well, this guy from Sevierville called me and said, "I watched your video and I thought I'm one man with 2 trucks. I felt God nudge me. I'm going to bring this truck up there on Friday." And I was like, "Oh," I was so excited. It was late at night though. So I waited till the next morning. It was like 7:15, 7:30. I called Randy because I was so excited. I wanted to tell him I was so excited. And he answered the phone and I was like, "Randy, we've got this guy in Sevierville and he's giving you a truck." Blah, 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 blah. Like I just started going on and on. He was silent. And I was like, "Are you okay? Like, did I wake you up? Sorry." And he said, "I got to tell you a story." I said, "Okay." He said, 12 or 20 days after the flood, I got this huge package in the mail and it was a truck bed cover. I said, "Okay." He said, "I don't order things online. I don't even know how." He said, "I don't have an Amazon account." I was like, "All right." He
Yeah.
said, "So I took it back down to the post office and I was like, I got to send this back to where it came from. It's got my name on it. I don't even have a truck that goes with this. I don't have a truck anymore, period. And I don't know where this came from." And they said, "Well, it has no return address. There's nothing we can do. I'm sorry, sir.
Yeah.
Someone has sent you a truck bed cover." He said, "I went home that night and I had a guy staying with me. I think the guy was from Kansas, maybe." And he said, "I told the volunteer staying with me, if God sends me a truck to go with this truck bed cover, I'm going to go out and I'm going to buy a suit and I'm going to go to church every day, every Sunday for the rest of my life because I will know that there is a God. He said, and now he sent me a truck. And we were just like, wow. So every time we finished a house, we would do an Amazon wish list. This was one of the coolest things about the whole project because people giving money is great, but it's really cool if you can go onto someone's Amazon wish list and say, I bought all of their bath towels, or I got their kids' bedding, or their laundry baskets, or whatever. It's very personal. And when you go on and do an Amazon wish list, you can send them a note or a prayer or a Bible verse or whatever. So every time we finished a house, people would send everything. The Amazon wish list, we had this one group, I forget where they're out of, somewhere in the South, of men from this church. And all they would do is fundraise for our Amazon wish list. And the main contact would reach out to me and say, don't you post that Amazon wish list before you give us first dibs.
Yeah.
And they would go on first before it was even released to the public, and they would buy a couple $1,000s worth of stuff. Because, I mean, these people, and some of them got insurance money or FEMA money, but you got to think, they lost their stapler, their bathroom rugs, their everything, all of those. So I had this master list from a wedding registry that I added extra stuff to that I would give to people and say, when you make your Amazon wish list, here's a guide you can go by. And they would get all of the things that they needed. So when we did Randy's wish list, he put a suit on his wish list. And I had shared the story on the video on Facebook. He got like a dozen suits. People were just mailing suits to the church building to give to him. And somebody even bought him, he ended up getting a lawnmower, a weed eater, all of his equipment that he needed for his landscape business. It was all taken care of.
So is he still doing landscaping? Is he back in? Okay.
He is.
Is he going to your church?
He is. No, he doesn't go to our church. He doesn't go to our church. That's the funny thing. And we have seen a lot of people who were out of church for years who are back in church now. One of the guys who was helping us do the rebuilding stuff was about to do a church plant in Hampton before this happened. So he is ministering to a lot of those people now, and a lot of them go to his church.
Okay, that's cool.
But it's crazy the things. It's funny when tragedy hits, how it changes people's perspective.
Yeah.
And it's also crazy how that when you love on people, you don't even have to talk about Jesus. It points them to Jesus immediately. And the people that I have seen who have confessed their sins or repented or left the job site to go be baptized in the lake because that tragedy hit and it was so hard, but they saw the love. That's what we're supposed to do as Christians. Yeah. And it wasn't one church. And it wasn't one denomination. It was people who I know for a fact used to argue and bicker over little bitty things, who came alongside each other and got covered in insulation together or covered in muck together in their muck out suits, hugging each other and praying together and holding hands with these homeowners, united. And it was such an epiphany to me. If we were really busy as the Lord's church, loving on people and serving people the way that we're called to do, we wouldn't have time for all the divisive stuff. Yeah. It would fill up all of our space and all of our hearts the way it's supposed to.
Yeah. I agree with you on that one. Oh, hold on here.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. Did we go to River Road? That sounds familiar. So, where? River Road. Wait, what's
River Road was on the other side. So you have Hampton High School and you have the highway. River Road is really close to Valley Forge Free Will Baptist Church. Okay. It's like in that little holler. They call it a holler down in there.
That sounds familiar.
There were a lot of houses down there.
But that where we were was right next to Hampton High School. Mm-hmm. Yeah. For sure. I don't remember. That just sounds really familiar. There were so many places too that we tried to get to that we couldn't.
Yeah.
You know, just access wise or whatever.
Bumpus Cove was really, really
yes.
bad. It was hard to get to.
Bumpus Cove, yeah, okay.
We had one guy who had he had reached out to me and he wanted to donate a camper, and they wanted to donate it down to Bumpus Cove. We had 69 campers
Wow.
that came in.
And how many people were in need right there in that area? More than
I
69?
have no idea.
Okay.
We so I we started this work. I was introduced to all these people who I'd never met before, and we all became a team, and we were complete strangers. Tyler Mackey was our camper guy. To this day, I've never met Tyler Mackey face to face. Tyler and I talked almost every day. And when I would get a camper, I would just screenshot it and send it to Tyler. And he and Angie Odom vetted people, figured out who needed it. He worked out all the logistics. They just totally took it off my plate.
Mm-hmm.
So he was the one who handled, which was a major blessing because there were so many people. It was like we had different categories. There were people who wanted to donate. There were people who were donating vehicles or appliances it was really nice to be able to have people when we could channel that to someone else just to take the load off because it was so much. So many people got vehicles. It was incredible.
How big was the team that you were working with?
The first one I was working with was Jerry and Adam and Tyler and Beth and me. So there were 5 of us on that team. Then I moved on to River Road, and it was Curtis and Keith and Desi and me. So there were 4 of us on that. And that's kind of the team that we're still working with. We're all still working. And Daniel. I forgot Daniel.
Yeah. What needs do you have right now?
We need a block mason.
Okay.
We need concrete block and we need a block mason.
Okay.
That's because when we get ready to build this house, that's the one thing that we don't have. We don't have anybody who's donated HVAC. HVAC would be good.
Okay.
But we already have a roofer. We already have drywall. I usually do the paint crew. Somebody could donate appliances. But every time we do this, people are so excited and they want to come help, and we end up having more than we need, which is an incredible blessing.
Yeah. So then how many more do you think you're going to have?
I
mean, I know did you do a video that said house number 28 and this is going to be the last one?
No, I don't say that anymore. Okay. After house number 15, I don't say this is the last one anymore. I'm like, I don't know. Whatever God's will is, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Because I keep thinking, okay, there can't be any more. Surely we're done. There can't be any more. But the thing is, there are a lot of people still in Burnsville and in Western North Carolina and stuff that we know the contacts in those areas. That if we were still getting funds coming in and we ran out of houses here, we can send it to help other people. There are more needs. Yeah. And I feel like we shouldn't sit on it. I think that's one of the reasons why God blessed it, because we moved. We didn't have meetings and discuss it at length and, I don't know, maybe we should do it. No, we just moved as fast as we could and just kept moving. And as long as we kept moving, God kept going. I had this guy call me. He was a government person. Leave it at that. And he said, the problem with what you're trying to do here is you're going to run out of resources. I was like, he said, you can't do enough fundraising. I said, we're not fundraising. He was like, what do you mean you're not fundraising? I said, we're not fundraising. We pray about the needs and then God supplies every single time. And he was like, well, what are you going to do when the money runs out? I said, I guess that means God's done because it's not our plan. It's God. But he was like, you need to stop this. You can't keep going. And I was like, are you kidding me right now? Like, God is our bank. Yeah. You've got the United States of America. Okay, we have the Lord. Yeah. He'll keep going as long as he wants to go.
Yeah. And was there anything else to that conversation? Did it just kind of end?
It just kind of ended.
Did you have more interaction with him, or was it?
I actually blocked him after that conversation because every time I heard from him, it was very frustrating to me, and it was like I don't have time for this. We've got people who need help, and we've got volunteers who have the love of Jesus in their heart, and they just want to come and help. And those are the people I'm giving my time to right now. It's none of your business what we're doing.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry. You go do your thing. Yeah. We'll do our thing.
Well, hopefully he has seen the testimony, though, because that would be cool.
So. But it would be cool.
It's hard because he's more of a roadblock at that point.
Yes. There every time.
Or maybe he's the enemy trying to divide you.
Yeah, absolutely. Every time we had someone try to come in who was a government or an organization or someone who wanted to come in and take credit, it just stopped. There was just a roadblock and it just stopped because it wasn't about that. Yeah. It was about God getting the glory. period.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything we were doing. And people were like, oh, this is incredible what y'all have done. And we're like, no, it's really not.
Yeah.
Like, we're not worthy to be sitting here watching what God's doing and talking about it. That's all we're doing.
Yeah. So your husband's a builder.
Yeah.
And so that's providential in and of itself.
Yes, it
right?
is. Yes.
Did you ever imagine that this was what was going to happen with all of his skills and his background? Like, how long had he been building? What was his specialty? Is it your business or is he working for somebody?
No, he's a contractor. It's his
Okay.
business.
Okay.
So it's always been his dream
Yeah.
to do this.
Okay.
And he used to do work for people and stuff, but then he started building houses and flipping houses about 6 years ago.
Okay.
He loves it, but that's all he does. He builds houses. And then he has some antique malls too. And then we had a couple of retail stores, which, as all of this was happening with the work, the retail stores were my thing. I ran those. Well, we started about this time last year, our business started just tanking.
What kind of retail business?
It was called Finders Keepers.
Oh my gosh. You guys owned Finders Keepers?
We did, yes.
No stinking
Yes.
way.
Did you like Finders Keepers?
Yes.
So much fun.
Well, so should I tell her the Jura story?
Uh-oh.
Okay, this is a side note. This is a Finders Keepers story. So we're big espresso people. Like, we love, like, a latte is literally like my favorite thing on the planet. Like, just give me some raw milk and some espresso and I'm done. Like, it's my happy place. And years ago, like years, over a decade. So my dad and I love coffee, and like we share our love for coffee. And so he was like, Leah, I got this coffee machine. And, because we would go out and get lattes or whatever. And he was like, it's called Jura. It's a Swiss brand. It's these amazing, like, he, back in his corporate life, like, he went and he had he saw one of these machines at, somewhere he went for a meeting, and he was like, it was so good. So he was like researching, and he was like, oh my gosh, I found one, and this is what I got for myself. And I was like, okay, Dad, I'm going to get the same coffee machine. So I literally ordered the exact same coffee machine. And at the time, my parents were living in Maryland and I was living in Philly. And so I got my coffee machine, and it was 2011. To this day, I still have that espresso machine. So, like, it is paid for itself for that long. I mean, 2011, it's 2026.
It's a long time.
And it wasn't brand new when I bought it either. But anyways.
Wow.
So what was it, last summer? Last summer, we went to Finders Keepers. And if unless you're a Jura person, you wouldn't know. There was a Jura box on one of the tables in Finders Keepers. And I was like, Brian, that's a Jura box. Because, you guys had the items that were not the $1 whatever. You had other regular items. And Brian was like, what? So he like ran over there. And while he's like walking over towards the box, whoever was working that day, I was like, do you mind if can we open that box? And the guy was like, yeah, go ahead. I mean, to make sure it's all there, whatever. And so Brian was like, whoosh. So he pulls out his pocket knife and he was like, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. He opened it up and he was like, Leah, there's a coffee machine in here. And I was like, because it says it's Jura on the side, Jura Capresso. And I was like, shut the front door. So we like opened it up and he was like, it's a Jura. And I was like, I don't care how much it costs. We're getting it right now because like they're the best coffee machines. And so it was, how much was it? What? It's $130. And we looked it up, and that coffee machine, it needs to be refurbed and it needs to be fixed in a couple things. But how much is it retail? It's a $3,200 coffee machine.
What?
That we found at Finders Keepers for $130. It needs to be fixed, and there's a couple things that need to be done with it. But we, like, because we're Jura people, we know where to send it. We know, like, what it costs to get it fixed and, like, all the things. And so we were like, oh. So now we have it.
Nice.
And so now we have 2 Juras that are both going to last us so that when our tried and true girl dies, we have a newer version. But it was just so funny. And so ever since then, literally, Like every week, I think my parents went there to see if you guys ended up having another Jura.
Oh,
And then we went just to see, like, we're like, oh my gosh, are they going to
that's
have? So
hilarious.
isn't that funny?
That is so
Yeah,
funny. It was a fun store.
I bet.
It was awesome. It was all Target overstock. It was great, but inventory
Yeah.
went up. It was just too
Well,
much.
I
We couldn't
wonder
do it
how you
anymore.
ended up with that coffee machine, unless it was in like the employee lounge or something at a Target, which not like that's like a $3,000
Maybe. We even had
corporate
things
office,
though that
maybe.
were Target online only.
Okay.
But we would get some Amazon things sometimes too.
I don't even know if
So
do they sell Jura on Amazon? Brian's gonna look it up because that's a very, we thought that was like a God thing. We were like, oh my gosh, God,
that
because
is
he
so
knows how much that
cool.
we love it. And like that, it's just such an interesting thing.
$3,200. That's insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah. Well,
I
I mean,
love
it's
that.
$600 to fix it really because you get it like
Oh,
refurbed. So you send it
yeah.
in. I mean, but that's okay because like for us in the long run, we know.
It's worth it.
And it's funny because the gentleman that was working that day, I was like, dude, you don't even know what you have right here. And he was like looking at me like, I don't. Are you going to buy it? You know? And I was like, heck yes, I'm going to get it. This is mine.
We
Don't let
never
anybody
knew
take
what
it.
we had. There would be people who would find Apple Watches in the bins
Oh,
for
really?
$8 and we didn't even know we had them
Yeah.
because we just opened boxes and dumped. It was fun. It was a
Yeah.
fun business model. But the economy shifted and
Yeah.
inventory shifted and
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and I know there are a couple of places that are like that.
Yes, there are other bin stores
Yeah.
throughout the
Is that what they're
country.
called? Bin stores?
Bin stores.
Okay.
That is a lot of the problem is it became
Yeah.
a really trendy business. So people were opening them everywhere and it's not like you just have a place you can get inventory. You have to go online and do auctions to buy your inventory.
Yeah.
So we were competing for
Yeah.
inventory with a lot of these places and even people who were like, I'm going to do this in my garage and buy a pallet and sell it on eBay.
Yep.
So their
Or
price
Facebook
point or
Marketplace,
Facebook
too.
Marketplace, so their price point, they could pay a lot more because they
Yeah.
weren't the same business model
Yeah.
as us. So we tried the half off store. We tried everything and
Yeah.
it was finally we had to close it down.
Oh, man.
But I think God closed our store,
Yeah.
honestly, because it was at that point where I was trying to write the book and my book was about to launch and the ministry was really taking off. And I
Yeah.
think God was just like, nope, you're not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
And we had a crazy blowout sale. The problem was we were still under a lease.
Okay.
So we should.
Yeah, I went to the blowout.
You went to the blowout sale. Yeah, blowout sale was so fun. So we were
Yeah.
under a lease and we were on the hook for over $100,000
Oh,
to
my
pay.
gosh.
Yeah, and we were like, what are we gonna do? This is awful. So we started negotiating with the landlord. Is there any way will you let us out of the lease? Is there anything we
Yeah.
can do? So he finally, we had talked about $36,000, and then one of the guys came to me and said, "Hey, if you offer him half, I think you can do it." So we went back to him and we offered $18,000 and he took it. And that's what we brought in for our closeout sale that week was $18,000.
Wow.
It was exactly the amount. So there were just so many things that
Yeah.
God was like, I've got you. It's okay.
Yeah.
But I struggled during that time because I just witnessed all these miracles and seen all this stuff. But when it's someone else's house and you're like, have faith, it's really easy to tell somebody else when they're in the trenches to have faith.
Yeah.
But when it's you and we're going to lose our income, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
It's different. It's
Yeah.
when your faith is really put to the test.
Was there anything else that you guys were going through personally during that time where it was like, or was that pretty much it?
It was the houses, they consumed everything, which it was such a blessing. I mean, just the coolest thing that we've ever been part of. But I guess I didn't realize until here the last couple of months as things have slowed down. It's almost like I've been in a coma for a year and a half.
Yeah.
Like I lost a year and a half. There are people that I haven't talked to and think everything has gone on the back burner because it became our whole focus of everything. And the time management is such a struggle with all the messages and stuff,
Yeah.
which is a huge blessing. It's
Yeah.
totally awesome. I love it. But it's just, we're still kind of in whiplash.
Well, and that's great that you want to respond to each of those people yourself because it is personal stories. It is
Personal.
people seeing something and they're like, they see something in you. And so they want to talk to you. But I know that that's very daunting because it's
I feel bad.
and it's emotionally draining though too because you
Yeah.
have to reserve some of that time for yourself to be able to like process and grieve the things that you need to grieve and figure out what God wants you to even say sometimes in some of those scenarios too, because you don't ever want to lead anybody anywhere where they're not where they shouldn't go. So I
Yeah.
mean, it's a lot. I can just imagine the weight that you're carrying
Yeah.
from day to day has got to be a lot. Can you start like a message board where people can talk with each other, and then maybe that'll help and you can chime in and maybe have, if it's a collective spot where if people are all needing to reach out, then maybe that alleviates the burden from you. I mean, you can pray about that and
Right.
see if that's something that might help people.
Right.
And then also it can help that, because a lot of times somebody might need something that day. I'm not saying that to make you feel badly, but I'm
No,
saying
but
like
it's
somebody
so
might
true.
be, it might be, they might be contemplating suicide or something.
Yeah,
And then
and
if they're
it's
reaching out to
urgent.
you, like if you have some place, if you have an online war room,
Right, where
where it's
people can
like
pray.
people
That's
can
such a cool
pray, and then
idea.
maybe you have other people that can pray and monitor it as well. And you can be like a moderator to go on there and even do videos, maybe just for
That is such a
that
cool
online war
idea.
room, something.
It has really blown my mind, even in just the comments section,
Yeah.
because Facebook is where the biggest following is.
Yeah.
And the way that people even reply to each other and pray for each other and comment to each other. There are a
Yeah.
lot of people who have become a little community because they've all shared in this journey. I don't I don't have I don't have time to read all the comments,
Yeah.
unfortunately. I try
Yeah.
to scan just to make sure there isn't anything
Yeah.
bad or whatever, but I really most of them I never see. But a
Yeah.
lot of them are already doing that for each other. So I think that could be really cool if
Yeah.
there was a place where they could all pray for each other
Well, you could
and
do a Facebook group, right?
yes,
That's
just make
free.
a group.
Yeah. That's
That's a
free,
great
right, Brian, to
idea.
do a Facebook group like that? You what? Yeah, and you can make it private so that that way somebody has to
They have to join it to pray for
join,
each
and you
other.
just the questions that you ask, you can maybe kind of filter, like, are you a believer, or like,
Right.
are you going through something?
That's a great idea. Yeah, because you never know. There are some days I'll sit down and I'm like, well, I'm going to reply to messages for 1 hour today.
Yeah.
And at the end of the hour, I've replied to two.
Yeah.
Because I have out my Bible, I'm just like sending them a novel or I'm recording voice messages and
Yeah.
talking to them because some of them are heavy. It's hard. And then I feel bad because somebody will ask me, can I pay to have you mail me an autographed book? And 6 weeks later, I'm like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sure, if you still want it.
Sorry. Do you hate me now?
Yeah. They don't. They understand. They get that you're
They're
busy.
very understanding. They're
Yeah.
really awesome. It's a great community. In the beginning, we would have like the trolls and the people like come on and say, this lady doesn't do construction work. She wears too much makeup. Like just the people who would blast me for stuff or whatever. But now it is a little community.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people know each other because they've even come and worked on homes together and stuff. So
Yeah.
that's really cool.
Yeah.
And they're trying to reschedule trips so they can come back and work with each other again.
Yeah. How has this impacted your children at all?
Oh, it has blown my children away.
Okay.
At mm, every person in our family has had their faith quadrupled by this. And the things that I see my kids do and say because there will be things. There was something. It was a few months ago. I was riding in the car with my daughter and I was stressing about something. And she was like, well, have you prayed about it? And I was like, no. And she was like,
Yeah.
duh. Because she just watched it happen over and over again. And it's they have witnessed a lot. And my daughter says she won't go with me when I
How old
speak
is she again?
anymore. She's 11 now.
Okay. Okay.
So she doesn't go with me when I speak anymore. She's like, Mom, I could do your talk in my sleep. She's like, I know all the stories.
Yeah.
But they impact me. I have never spoken about it without crying. It doesn't matter how many times I tell the stories.
You almost made it today. You barely.
I barely cried today.
Yeah.
I barely cried today.
I did enough for both of us. So
It's just so impactful. It's just insane.
yeah.
And when Jerry will call me, and sometimes we'll just reminisce, and sometimes we'll just sit on the phone and just cry, just talking about all the stories and everything that's happened. And it's pretty crazy. He said, I just sit in my house and I just look around and like, wow, how did this happen? He has this little sign in his yard that somebody made him that says this house is being built by God's hands. It's like this metal sign that they
Yeah.
put out in the yard when it's first
Where's
being built.
where's his blessed sign? Does he
Oh,
still have it?
it fell off the tent and
Uh,
broke. We had a bad windstorm while we were in
okay.
the middle of rebuilding.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's gone.
Shoot.
But there was someone, so we found his Bible. It was a few days after the flood that we found his
Jerry's Bible?
Jerry's Bible.
Okay.
And it was in rough shape. It was in the mud and the pages were all wrinkled and stuff.
But that's a very interesting thing to find.
The fact that we would find his Bible.
'Cause out of all the things.
Yes, I got to tell you a Bible story in a second.
Okay.
I got to
All right.
remember to tell
All
you
right.
that one. But I took a
tuck it away.
picture of it. I found it and I was like, oh man, but the fact that it was in the mud, it just represented so much. And I
Yeah.
took a picture of it. Well, one of the volunteers who had worked on his house was like, will you send me that picture of his Bible? I love that. She made it black and white and had it printed on a canvas with that verse that he is mightier than the sound of many waters, or he's mightier than waters, whatever that verse is. She had printed on there and gave it to him as a housewarming gift. It hangs in his living room
cool.
of his house. So the second family that we adopted that was at the end
Wait,
of the street.
is this a Bible story you were just going to tell me about?
Yes, this is the Bible
all
story I
right,
got to tell you
all
about.
right.
Okay, so
Great. Do I need to get a fresh Kleenex for this one?
Maybe.
Should I blow my nose ahead
Maybe.
of time?
So this family, they were the second family we took on at the end of the street. They were the ones that needed kerosene that day. So she reached out to me. It hasn't been, oh man, just a few months ago. Okay. So it's been a year and a half since the flood. A few months ago, she reaches out to me and she's like, you're never going to believe this story. The year before the flood hit, her mom had passed away and she was grieving hard. Her mom had lived with them. So all of her personal belongings had washed away. She had lost her purse, her Bible, so many of those things she was still hanging on to as she was grieving. So the flood impacted her so hard because she wasn't just grieving the things she lost. She said, I feel like I've lost my mom all over again. And so many of the pictures and stuff, it really hit her hard. So it was a Sunday morning and they didn't go to church, which they had been back in church, but they didn't go to church because she was sick. She was homesick.
Wait, this was
a few months ago. Just a few months ago. They're back in their house.
Okay.
Everything's put together. It's good. It's been
Okay.
over a year since the flood.
Yeah.
It's a Sunday morning. She's homesick. And she gets a knock on the door. And she sends her husband to the door. And he comes and gets her. And he's like, you need to come out here. There was this couple standing on their front porch holding her mom's Bible. They lived miles away. And the Bible had washed up near their house. And they found it and they started researching the names because it was the family Bible that had all the names and stuff, and figured out whose family it belonged to and tracked them down to bring it back to her. And I was just, wow. Over a year later, I mean, it was just incredible. Take it. Sorry.
It's okay. It's really incredible.
It is incredible.
That was a lot of work.
There were so many things like that they were just God winks.
For sure.
That it was people who were hurting and it was God showing them, I'm here for you and I care about you and I see how you're hurting and I'm here to make it better.
Yeah. So the Bible was okay?
Yeah, the Bible was okay. She sent me pictures of it. She said, you got to make a video about this.
Yeah. You do.
I know people keep saying, well, is there going to be a God Stories too? Because since this book release, there's been so much more that's happened. So people are asking.
So is every chapter a different family?
No, it's really, it reads kind of like a fiction book because it's the story.
Yep.
So it's the progress all the way through May of last year of everything that happened. And it's chronological, just the people who came into our lives, the volunteers, the miracles, the progress on the houses, but it's mostly just the miracle stories because that's what people want to hear. And that's what strengthens and encourages everyone. I heard recently that one of the top 3 things searched on YouTube is how to find hope. Yeah. I think people are starved for hope and good stories and just the reassurance that there's something beyond this life.
Well, people are searching regardless. I think ever since COVID,
I mean, I think people have been, I mean, we've been searching forever, right? I mean,
Mhm.
people just need to look up.
Yeah.
And they've had so many opportunities to see God that they just choose to not see God, right? And I think COVID did this weird thing for people because it was back when it first started, everybody was super scared. I don't know one person that wasn't like, whoa,
Yeah.
what is this?
Yeah.
And I was 8 months pregnant I was, well, 7 months pregnant in March of 2020. So we had our son at the very beginning of April in 2020. And so to be pregnant, so it added a whole new dimension because I had never been pregnant before. And so now it's like shut down this scary sickness that nobody knew at first. I mean, obviously
Mhm.
we know all the things, but in that moment, it was like terrifying. Here I am with my belly and it's like, oh my gosh. And then I didn't have a baby shower because it got canceled. So I
Yeah.
never had a baby shower. And then even in the hospital, I had to get a COVID test. I had to get swabbed in between contractions.
Oh
So,
my
yes,
goodness.
twice so I had both of my boys, 2020 and 2021. So I have never experienced being pregnant and having a baby outside of
Wow.
crazy COVID. And so it was just such a weird time because I know that a lot of people at that point were like, what the heck is going on? Is this the end times? And then like the vaccine and then all the things. Like,
Yeah.
I just feel like since then, people are like, what is going on with all the things in the world? Now, I mean, obviously, God is not impressed because he knows all of this and he's just like, I know. And it seems like it has a giant magnitude because we're living this. But
Mhm.
if you look at, you read stories in the Bible and you look at all these things, it's like nothing is new under the sun.
Mhm.
It's just our sin looks different today than it did in Sodom and Gomorrah or like
Yeah.
Babylon or anything. And it's funny, like it almost feels worse because we have more people and it's compacted and it's like, you know, in everybody's face more. But it's just at the same parallel as all of this like evil and sin and things are happening. I've seen so much like awesome stuff come out. And it's like, okay, like be aware but not impressed, right? Be
Yeah.
aware of the sin that's happening, but don't be impressed by it. Cause it's like that when you get impressed by the sin, that's when you fall. And then
Yeah.
that's when you don't realize. And that's when you start to turn away from God. It's like, oh, okay, I'm impressed with this. This deserves my attention more than this. And it's like, no, no,
Mhm.
no, no, cut it out, get it back up here. And so I think that people are just like with YouTube, with all the things, they're like, I need hope, I need help,
Yeah.
and it's really next to, I guess, I don't know what the top three things would be. You said it was number one is people finding hope.
It was in the top 3 was how to
Yeah.
find hope. I don't know what the other 2 were, but in the top 3 was how to find hope.
Probably in the top three might be like funny videos though.
Might
Also
be.
like
Might be.
fails.
Might be. True.
Finding hope, falling. I don't know, top three. Brian, do me a favor and look up what the top three most searched videos are for YouTube. Because I'm curious now as to
Yeah.
what they
I'm
are.
curious too.
But I just, as a people, like we need hope.
Yeah.
If we don't have hope, then we're dead.
I think that's one of the other huge benefits when all this happened. There were people on that street who said, we didn't even know our neighbors before.
Yeah.
And everybody was outside. They were all helping each other. They were getting to know everything about each other. They were
Yeah.
going into each other's homes and they had never been in each other's homes.
Yeah.
And after COVID, people stopped hanging out.
I know.
And now everybody's
Yeah.
on their phones. We're indoors.
Yep.
Back in the
It's this.
day, people sat on their porches and visited with their neighbors and they knew what was going on in each other's
Yeah.
lives. And that was something I think that was really refreshing, was to see people come together and form that community again
Yeah.
that they had lost.
It's so weird. I read an article the other day that was talking about how we can't raise our kids the way that we were raised because of the interruption of technology. Because we had to be patient, right? Because we had to wait for like we had to wait at Christmas time to turn the TV on to see if Rudolph or like White Christmas was going to be
Yes.
on, or It's a Wonderful Life. We didn't have it unless you owned a VHS player and you could watch it, but still, it was not instantaneous. You had to fast forward through commercials or, things like that.
Yeah.
And so, like, the article was talking about how we really have to, because I get so frustrated at our boys because of patience or because of things. And I read this article and I was like, oh, this is very interesting because their brains are already hardwired a little differently because of all the things that they're constantly exposed to that we weren't exposed to when we were little kids. Like it would be like one of those, oh, I'm going to go to my friend's house and hope that they're there.
Right.
Or I'm going to go to the
Yeah.
mall and hope that my friends are there to hang out.
Yeah.
But now it's not safe to have your kids do that by themselves. They can't.
Mm-mm.
And it's
We
just
got trackers on our kids.
yeah, it's so weird because we want them to have those freedoms that we had, but like we live in a different age. We can't do that. I mean, but once again, evil has always been around, right? We've always had these problems, but now that we're parents, we're more hyper aware.
Yes.
And because everything is out there now on the internet, like we can, it's like,
So
it's just,
different.
it's so hard
Yeah, it is
to
hard.
navigate it.
It is hard.
I mean, I can't imagine having kids in double digit age at this point.
Yeah. Oh, it's different world.
And so your son's older?
Yeah, he just graduated
Oh
from high
my
school
gosh.
last year. He's graduated, and my daughter is about to go into the middle school.
Okay.
So it is a different world. And we don't see them. We're not cool enough for them to hang out with. We don't see them.
Pray
They're-
about it.
But then I'm like, well, even when I was their age, I was always in my room on the
Yeah.
landline talking all the time to my
Super
friends.
long cord
or-
going out the door.
Yes.
Brian, did you look up those top 3?
Yeah, so ASMR,
ASMR.
What is that?
karaoke, and song and music. ASMR is
It's the sound
second
effects
sounds.
that make
You
you,
know
go
what
to
it is?
sleep. Yes,
Okay.
because my daughter watches them all the time to go to
Okay.
sleep. Her friends will come over for a sleepover and they have ASMR pulled up on YouTube on
Really?
Yeah.
That's the number
It's-
1?
Audiovisual content designed to trigger autonomous sensory meridian response.
Weird.
Satisfying sounds.
Sensation, feelings of deep relaxation and euphoria.
So
Okay.
they don't show how to find hope on the top 3
I guess it's
of that YouTube.
Okay. So it was all music related, though?
sounds and music. Yeah,
Sounds and
karaoke
music
is
related.
Karaoke's on there? Sorry, karaoke. I'm from the Midwest. I grew up in the Midwest, and that's one of those words. It's not karaoke, it's karaoke.
Really?
Yeah, and it's interesting because if you look at the way that the word is spelled, like karaoke, it actually is a little more phonetic, makes sense. But it's just so funny because sometimes I'll say karaoke, people will look at me like, "What?" I'm like, "I'm sorry, karaoke." That's right.
That's
one.
funny.
That's one word that I, like Kleenex tissue. But yeah, so karaoke. That's hilarious. That's interesting. I guess that makes
is
sense.
Interesting.
Where is Hope? Can you look it up? Where is Hope for YouTube? I'm interested.
What the list is.
Yeah, maybe there's a top 10. No, I'm not
Yeah,
going to
I
wait
think
for you.
people are really hungry for it.
Yeah,
They are.
they're hungry for God, man.
They are.
It's just really cool.
It's inside of us. We're
Yeah.
all born with that.
Yeah.
We need it.
It's our creator. So
Yeah.
don't fight it. There was an interesting thing that I think of all the time is an old pastor of mine that is in Portland. He got in trouble because he said that God is omniscient. And he said, so that means that God is even in hell. But he said, being in hell means that you don't know him, but he's still there. Because if he's truly omniscient, he is everywhere. But you have to know him. And it was a really interesting thing. And he got a lot of pastors and a lot of people like really came down on him.
I bet.
Because they were like, what the heck? And he was like, you're not understanding me. Because to you, God's not omniscient then. Because if he's not, omniscient literally means everywhere. Right. He was like, your own personal hell is not knowing God. So that is where hell is. And it's such an interesting thing. And so I think about that very frequently in our day and age and all the things that we're going through. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, there are so many people that are literally choosing to be in hell.
Yeah.
And they see God, they see all the things that God's doing, or like whatever, and they just literally are like, well, okay, I see you and I've heard about you, but I'm going to choose not. I'm going to choose no on that one. It's going to be a hard pass, and then they just, So isn't that like an interesting perspective?
Our minister shared this quote in a lesson recently. He said, "For the Christian, earth is the closest you will ever get to hell. For the non-believer, earth is the closest they will ever get to
To
heaven."
heaven.
And that struck me really profoundly.
Yeah.
Because it is a choice, and you're right. You are choosing your own personal hell when you don't walk with God. It's the most miserable, scariest place you can be in,
Yeah.
not to have that
Lonely.
foundation
Yeah.
and that peace
Yeah.
that only He can bring.
Yeah. Did you grow up as a believer?
I did.
Okay.
I
Here?
did. I grew up in Banner Elk, North Carolina, in
Oh, okay.
Western North Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So not too far away.
Yeah.
Just over the mountain. But I went through some really hard times. I went through a nasty divorce in 2010, and I actually fell away from my faith for a long time. And I only
2010.
recently,
Ditto.
2010.
I also went through a divorce in 2010.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yeah.
It's rough.
Yeah.
Divorce is rough.
Yeah.
It was hard. And it, obviously, my faith wasn't built on the rock. It wasn't built on a solid foundation because I lost my faith. I had a weak foundation. And if anything, I think finding my way back to God has made me way more on fire for God than I ever was before.
Okay.
Maybe it's just because I'm so grateful for being forgiven and being welcomed back. But there are things now, and especially after all of this has happened, I can't stop talking about God.
Yeah.
There are things that I never would have done 2 years ago, let alone 20 years ago,
Yeah.
talking to people at the gas pumps about God or handing out. I have this whole carton of Jesus merch in my trunk now. And I
Nice.
have little wooden crosses and little Jesuses and Bible verse keychains and Jesus stickers. I have some Jesus stickers in my purse. I'll give you one before I leave.
Nice.
And they're little conversation starters
Yeah.
because I've realized how important it is that we have the best news on earth. And it's
Yeah.
something every single person needs to hear and wants to hear. But when you're talking to someone, if you have something you can hand them first, it's such an icebreaker. And people get so excited when you hand them a little Jesus or a little,
Yeah.
and
People
a lot
love
of
free
times
stuff.
they love free stuff.
Yeah.
And it's not a tract with fire on the front that says,
Yeah.
if you died tonight, would you go to
Yeah.
hell? Like,
Yeah.
let's please stop. Can we please stop evangelizing that way?
Yeah.
But it's just a nice way to say, Jesus loves you. He cares about you. I'm here for you. Do you need me to pray with you about something? And it's a great icebreaker to show people.
Yeah.
So all of our Jesus merch is in the trunk, and it has come in handy so many times. I even have little stuffed animals for kids that say Jesus loves you,
Oh,
little
that's fun.
sashes. I know.
Yeah,
It's
that's all of my tattoos are faith-based. I maybe have one or two. I mean, really, God made everything. So like I have, just like I have a coffee cup right here that one of my best friends also has the same thing, but I mean like God made coffee, so that's fine.
right.
But they're all faith-based so that I can like if because people ask me all the time. They're like, "Oh, what does this tattoo mean? Or what does this one mean?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, there you go.
It's a
That's what it is."
conversation starter.
Because a lot of times it would give me the chance to talk to people or relate to people in a different way. Because, I think that if Jesus was here right now, walking the earth, like he wouldn't be over at the country club.
Yeah.
He would be,
Absolutely.
hanging out with some of the homeless people downtown, being like, "Hey, man, what's up?"
Yeah.
And
Tell
like,
me why you're hurting.
Yeah.
Let's talk.
Oh, I know, but tell me why.
Yeah.
Let's see if you tell me. Like that's what he would.
Yeah. It's what he
would-
did when he was here on
Yeah.
earth.
And so it's really given me a chance to talk and or witness to people that are like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know that a person could look like you and then have faith or whatever." And it's also caused a lot of parallels though, because I've had a lot of church hurt from unwelcoming or like, "Oh my gosh, you need to be saved." When I walk
Yeah.
into a church and it's like, "God bless you guys." Like we all do. But it's been interesting. It hasn't been an easy journey to be a heavily tattooed female, that's for sure. Because when I first started doing it, it wasn't as popular for women to have like as many tattoos. And I've had some. Gosh, I was in Target in Philly I lived there for a few years. So stinking loved Philadelphia. It was so good. And this woman had her daughter with her. It was like two friends, and she just was completely disgusted by me. And she said, "What man is going to want you looking like that in front of her daughter?" And like, it takes a lot to offend me as well, just like my mom, because there's just no point. Life's too short.
Yeah.
That's your reflection of your heart, not a reflection of my heart.
Yeah.
And so I was actually speechless when I heard her say that. I was like, oh my gosh. And I sat there and I just left the aisle because I was like, I'm not going to retaliate. God bless this lady. I just have to leave this scenario. I'm just going to pray for her because I was like, excuse me, so beside myself that people
That's unbelievable.
could say something like that. And I was like, okay. So
Yeah.
like I've had weird experiences like that and it's a lot of times it has been women.
Mhm.
Excuse me. Great. Now I got some phlegm in my throat, probably from all the crying. And so it's been interesting, but God hasn't called us to a life of easy.
No,
Right.
he hasn't.
And so it's funny how things like that happen. And even going through a divorce too. I mean, awful, awful scenario, but it made me who I was today. And so I would absolutely go through it again.
Mhm.
And the hardship that was, and like the years of pain to end
Mhm.
up here,
Yeah.
with Brian doing our thing.
Oh.
But here's a fun little God story for you. But let me clear my throat first. Yeah, it's so attractive. So this is when you were like sharing all those little stories about God, this has popped into my head. So Brian and I went to high school together
Oh,
and we were best friends in high school, but we didn't date.
sweet.
Like we were just best friends. And if I had a really hard day, I would just be like, I need a Brian hug because I just can't function. And then I would find Brian and I would just like collapse and he would just hug me. And I was like, all of my cares would just melt away. And I was just like, and we even signed a pact that if we weren't married by the age of, was it 30? Yeah, we signed it.
No
Because we were
way.
like, we're best friends. We'll stick and do this. And then
Oh.
Brian even remembers at one point we were standing, was it in the hallway of school? Of when you said, I just want to meet my wife already? We were standing in the hallway and Brian is like, I just want to stink and meet my wife already. I'm like exhausted. This is annoying. And I was like, well, maybe you already met her. So like there are all these little things that like where God, he was just like, like laughing, like, wait, guys, wait. I have to sharpen you a little bit.
Right.
It's not going to happen. But so then obviously I graduated a year before him. So then I went to college and then I got married in my 20s and, he was in a long relationship too. And it was just really funny. So then we didn't connect again, really, like we stayed in touch over the years. But then we didn't connect again until we were in our like mid 30s. And so it's just hilarious
Oh,
now.
I love that.
So now this summer is going to be our 10-year,
Oh.
our actual 10-year wedding anniversary. But we've known each other for over 20 years because of that being best friends in high school. And we talk about it all the time. We're like, stinking what? We were so hilarious in high school with all this. And if we just would have gotten married, right out of high school, but the trajectory, that's not what God wanted us.
Yeah, because his timing is everything.
Yeah. So
we just never know. It's funny how the hard things that we go through in those places where we're so broken end up being such a blessing and bringing us the perfect person.
Yeah. Isn't that funny?
That is funny. That's
Our
how
story.
I feel about my husband. He's amazing. We've only been married for 5.5 years.
Oh, nice. Congratulations.
Yeah, he's wonderful.
How'd you guys meet?
We met in the funeral home.
Oh, okay.
I actually
was not expecting you to say that.
Right? I actually, so the guy that I was dating at the time, he was looking for someone who would do videography for a funeral. And I was a full-time photographer in videography.
No way.
And he said, why don't you use my girlfriend? She'll come and shoot the funeral. So but he was like happily married. I did stuff for them all the time. I did their family pictures. I did everything. Yeah. And after he and his wife split, he messaged me on Facebook and was like, hey, how are you? And I was like, the funeral home guy?
Yeah.
Like, is he really messaging me? This is so weird.
Yeah.
But we knew I had been single for 10 years and I
Uh-huh.
was like, I'm never getting married again. And after our first date, he texted me and said, I'm going to marry you. And I was like, psycho.
Yeah.
We were engaged and married within 3 months.
Wow.
So it was,
That was God, for
He's
sure.
he's the one. But neither one of us were in a good place spiritually when we got married at all. We were actually talking to our daughter about this last night after Bible class, stressing the importance of not being unequally yoked and always. And my husband actually said to her, your mom should not have married me because she was the one trying to tell me to come to church, come to church, come to church. I was going to church, but my heart wasn't in it. I wasn't there. After my divorce in 2010, the church that I was attending disfellowshipped me. They actually kicked me out of the church. So there was a lot of church hurt and ick for years where I honestly, I couldn't stand Christians. I couldn't stand them. And what's funny is now going through everything that we've been through and both of us coming back to God and then him dumping this ministry in our laps, like a couple of years after we came back to God. I mean, it's just crazy. Now there are so many of the people who reach out to me in those messages who have questions about divorce and church hurt, or they're not sure they're saved, or they have guilt from their past. And there are all these things that, was it God's will for me to fall off the earth and fall out of my faith? No, but God took all my ugly, broken pieces like a mosaic and just turned them into something beautiful that now, because of where we are, because of our hurricane, I can help people who are struggling spiritually. That's just so the way God works.
Yeah. That's awesome, though. I mean, what better picture?
Yeah.
Literally. Because we all have an ugly mosaic.
Yeah.
And there's never going to be a good time to have your mosaic put back together.
No. And
it's never going to be complete either.
No, that's true. And when we put up this front like we're perfect and we've got it all together, who are we going to reach? Really? Yeah. I don't want to talk to anybody who pretends like they're perfect or they've never done anything wrong. Yeah. No, thank you. Yeah. We're all ugly. We're all broken. We're all sinful. Yeah. And I think when you get to talk to people and approach it that way, it's just being real, not pretentious.
Yeah. So so you're getting asked to speak at, I know, well, you spoke at the women's conference that my mom went to.
Yes.
But like, is this like a regular thing now that you're speaking all over? Are you going over the country? Are you staying like locally?
I'm trying to stay as locally as I can now. I'm only doing a few a year that are far away just because of my family.
Yeah.
I hate to leave them. Yeah. And they've been through so much already with me doing all of this work. I'm trying to just devote more time to them. Yeah. But it is conferences and I will speak anywhere people ask me to speak. I'm like, just please let me come and tell the God stories because I will speak, like I spoke at Noel bookstore in downtown Jonesboro. They had this little soup thing and I went and spoke at that. And I was invited, by the director of the International Film Festival in Branson, Missouri.
Oh, wow.
They're giving me a table for my God Stories book so I can talk to Christian film producers. Cool. And then they're giving me a room. So I'm going to be speaking several times while I'm there. That's the end of September. Okay. So I can tell people the stories. And I always just say yes. I'm like, any opportunity. I'm getting to speak on a podcast coming up here soon. It's The Edge, and it goes out to all of the inmates all over the United States in prisons, just telling all the God stories. Cool. So any opportunity, if I can make it happen, I always say yes. I do a lot of Zoom interviews too with people who are far away. Yeah.
Well, that was funny. The one thing my mom was like, I think that you guys could have a really good conversation, but I don't want to like offend her or for her to think that, I'm just trying to connect to you guys. And I was like, dude, I mean, no problem. It was just really funny. I was like, I doubt she's going to get offended, Mom. And I'm not going to get offended if she doesn't want to come and share.
I love any opportunity to talk to anyone. That's the thing. And whenever I get to go and speak, I have spoken at places where there were 12 people there. Yeah. And my prayer is that someone, if there's one person who is touched or who needed to hear something or who renewed their faith because of the stories, then it's worth it. Yeah. I have to put this plug out there too. So after the book came out, I made a full audiobook. It's me. Me. Okay. Reading in my closet.
In your war
It's
room.
my soundproof closet. Okay. I was trying. Yeah. Chatty G walked me through all the things to do to try to record my own book. But I have my audiobook is totally free. It's on YouTube, the whole entire thing.
Oh, cool.
It's over
Okay.
4 hours long, and it's on my author Courtney Dailey page. So anybody who wants the book but can't afford it, or who wants to share it with someone but can't afford to buy them one or whatever, it's totally free for the whole world. Anybody can listen to it. And I felt a real God nudge as I was writing the book that I wanted to do this. And there were people who came to me and they were like, "Are you kidding me? You're going to hurt your book sales." And I'm like, it's not about book sales.
Yeah.
It's just about people hearing these stories, and the more people who can hear them,
Yeah.
the better. So that's free if anybody wants to listen to it.
So did you film it or record it in one like, my gosh,
No, I didn't film
4
it.
hours.
It's just the picture of the book.
Okay.
And
And you're
but it's
talking
the
over it?
audio of
Yeah,
me
okay.
talking over it. Yeah, crying. I had to stop it because I would be reading and I would be sobbing and my voice is choked up and but whatever.
Yeah.
It's free.
Yeah. But that makes it more authentic, because a lot of times like these days, I feel like all the voiceovers and things like that are all AI anyways. So like the amount of inflection and things like that. We even were looking up. So we do a devotional together in the morning every day, and we like to listen to it. We'll still read it, but like in our app, you can hit the play and then it will still read it, so that we read it together. But then there's like a voice that's reading it to us. And I was like, Brian, I wonder if this is an AI voice. And he's like, I don't think so. So we looked it up. It was an actual guy who read the entire version of the Bible that on this app that we're reading.
What do you guys use? Do you use YouVersion?
Yeah.
That's what I use.
Yeah.
I listen to my YouVersion every morning.
But we found out it was an actual guy that did it. We were like, oh, okay, cool. That makes us. And then we were like, how long did that take?
I know.
To then read the Bible and then get the pronunciations.
I know.
And figure that out, because that's like, a dialect in and of itself, trying to get the names right in the Bible.
Yeah.
And everybody says them differently too, because he'll even say them. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's not actually how I would have said that. Maybe I'm saying it wrong. But it's just so funny. Like, you just never know if it's AI. So I think that's great, though, because it makes it more real and authentic.
It's
and I
real.
think that once again, people crave that authenticity.
Yeah.
I think that's also why podcasts are so popular these days, is that people want to see the people. They want to live in those moments. They want to experience it, because if they're just watching a movie, they can relate to it a little bit, but they don't know those people. They don't it's produced. It's like over the top. Yeah. It's not IRL. This is in real life.
Yeah.
And so I really think that it's been fun for us to do this. And funny enough, too, for us, every single episode has ended up being about God, right? Is that every single episode? Yeah, pretty much. So for us, who's kind of like, okay, what's God doing through that?
Yeah.
So
I love that.
Cool. Well, let me see. It's 11 o'clock. Do you have to go to the bathroom? Always?
Always.
Okay.
Always.
Do we want to pause? Is there anything else that you're like dying to share or talk about?
I don't think so. I think we covered most of it.
Okay. You just gave the name of the book too and your website. Can you give the Facebook group again, just in case people want to follow up and
Yeah, on Facebook, I'm author Courtney Dailey.
Okay.
And all of the videos are on there from that first 5-minute snotty video all the way through. All the videos of the work. And I usually make a video every other day or every 2 days.
Okay.
Just updating everyone and telling God's stories too, just to encourage people. And then I'm author Courtney Dailey on YouTube. That's where the free audiobook is. And then I'm author Courtney Dailey on Instagram too.
Okay.
But Facebook is where the majority of the action happens. That's where everything sparked.
Still has that personal touch.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for taking time today and for bringing an autograph book. I'm excited to finish reading it and, have 10 boxes of.
Or you can listen
Kleenexes
to
next
it
me.
for free on YouTube while the kids are playing. You just turn it on.
Yeah.
It's easy for busy moms. You
That's
listen in the
true.
car or whatever.
Yep. I can do that. I can do that, because it does get hard to sit down and read a book
It
these
does.
days. But, hashtag mom life.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything we can pray for you before we go?
Yes.
And we'll just we'll tuck that away.
Please be praying for family number 28 for
Okay.
this, that we can find the land. We have 3 new possibilities to investigate today.
Okay.
Please be praying that it
Okay.
all works seamlessly, just like it has, and
Okay.
that we have wisdom.
Cool. And then is there any GoFundMe still or anything that you can let people know if they want to still donate?
Yes, if you go to Central Community Christian Church in Johnson City and go to our website,
It's a lot of C's. Hold on.
it's Central Community
Community
Christian Church. I think the
Okay.
website is jesusiscentral.org.
Okay.
And if you go to the giving tab, there is a drop down box for flood relief fund.
Okay.
And that's where every dollar, nobody has a salary here. Every single dollar goes to help rebuild.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This episode is powered by OutPost Roasters, small batch, high quality coffee with soul. OutPost Roasters in Johnson City specializes in freshly roasted, small batch, ethically sourced, fair trade local coffee. That's what sets them apart from the big guys. They work directly with small farms and co-ops to ensure responsible practices and rich, balanced flavor in every single cup. Whether it's early mornings or late nights, their 12-ounce bags deliver bold, smooth coffee at a totally fair price. Head to outpostroastersjc.com to explore their blends and single origins. Outpost Roasters, coffee that's definitely worth waking up for.